A close friend just exposed something about your character. Everyone erode when. Archangel Michael says your name is being weighed in a room where you are not present, yet every whisper tries to shape your destiny. He stands behind you like a shield, a calm flame that refuses to flicker. He tells you to listen with courage because your truth is about to grow taller than every shadow standing over it. The air changed before the words arrived, and your spirit felt the tremor moving through the floorboards. A story was carried into the circle by the one you once trusted to keep your secrets safe. People leaned forward with heavy eyes, and the first cracks of judgment moved across the room like thin ice. A single sentence opened the floodgates, and you felt your name tumble out of someone else's mouth. It landed on the table with a thud, as if it were a stone thrown into a silent lake. Ripples went everywhere, and those ripples pretended to be truth. Screens glowed as messages flew across pockets and palms, each buzz adding weight to the rumor until it felt like iron. The friendly faces that once greeted you with warmth stepped back half an inch, just enough to turn comfort into caution. That half inch became a wall when fear tried to become their guide. You could almost feel your character erode in their minds, like a statue in hard rain. Every memory they once had of your kindness lost brightness in a single moment. The room forgot the light of your patience and remembered only the story that sounded sharp enough to draw blood. The close friend spoke like a person holding proof, but the evidence was only fragments carried by wind. A half-seen message, a half-heard call, a glance taken out of its original hour. It was not a record, it was a collage, and collages do not always tell the whole. Michael let his sword rest on your shoulder, not to fight people, but to cut through confusion. He asked your heart to choose firmness over fury. He asked your breath to keep a slow rhythm because slow rhythms guide thoughts into clear water. You did not chase the room with explanations, and that restraint became your first victory. You did not plead or beg for immediate belief, and that steadiness became your second victory. You held your ground with quiet dignity, and that posture became your third victory. Outside the circle, the world felt colder for a while, and silence tried to describe you. Silence can be a dangerous narrator when fear feeds it. But silence can also be a canvas, waiting for the true story to arrive with clean lines. There was a time when you forgave a debt no one knew about, and you never told the person to thank you. There was a time when you stayed late, made sure the doors were locked, and never claimed the extra credit. There was a time when you took the blame to protect someone who could not bear it, and you carried that weight in private. Those moments did not vanish because a new rumor shouted louder. They lived quietly in the bones of your life, like pillars under a house. The wind could rattle the windows, but the foundation did not move. Your friend's voice trembled after the room emptied, though pride tried to hide the shake. A crack formed in the certainty they wore as a mask. They had tossed a story like a match and were just beginning to fear the fire. Michael guided you to take one step and then another, measured and sure. He did not rush you toward confrontation because truth does not fear time. He pointed you toward the steady route where facts gather and stand like witnesses at dawn. A list was made, not to bury anyone, but to map the path back to clarity. Names of people who knew the real sequence of events. Dates and times that could be checked without drama. You reached for records that slept quietly on hard drives and in notebooks. You opened conversations that were calm rather than theatrical. You decided that the loudest voice would not decide your name. On another day, in the quiet of morning, you met the friend who had thrown the first stone. It was a small room with a single window, and the light did not flatter either of you. The truth sat between you like a third person who refused to blink. You spoke with the precision of someone who respects words. You laid down facts like cards on a table, not as weapons, but as bridges. You did not seek to win, you sought to reveal. The friends stared at the proof until the story they had carried divided into pieces that no longer fit together. Their shoulders lowered when the fragments could not pretend to be whole. The apology was not loud, but it was real, and real apologies wear humility like a cloak. Michael did not ask you to accept cheap peace. He asked you to unlock the door to reconciliation only if wisdom agreed. He reminded you that forgiveness is a gate, and gates can open slowly without breaking. As the days turned, the circle of people learned that noise is not the same as knowledge. They saw that patience leaves footprints, even when storms try to wash them away. They watched you stay steady in the same place where panic hoped to dance. Your character did not need a costume to appear powerful. It stood there with sleeves rolled and eyes clear. It showed them consistency in the hours when applause was missing. You remembered the first time kindness felt costly and how you paid anyway. You remembered how you held back anger to protect your own sleep and your own future. You remembered the promise you made to yourself about being a person who builds rather than breaks. The story about you changed shape because reality pressed its hands against it. False edges softened, and the center became transparent. People began to see the difference between the outline and the living person inside it. Some faces that turned away moved back again. Not all returned, and not all needed to. You learned that not every chair in your life must be filled for your table to be strong. Michael placed a feather of courage in your pocket for the hours that still felt tender. He taught you to let gentleness guard your voice and thunder guard your boundaries. He showed you a future that requires neither revenge nor surrender. You discovered a rare confidence that does not depend on applause. It is the kind that rests in the chest like a low fire that never dies. It warms judgment without becoming a blaze that consumes. The friend who exposed you began repairing, one stitch at a time. Private corrections were made in every place the rumor had traveled. Public truth was sewn carefully where the fabric had torn. You learned how to stand in your own weather, body upright, gaze steady. You understood that character is not a mask for bright days, but a backbone for hard ones. You felt a deep alignment between what you value and what you live. The community that matters most counted the days you stayed kind under pressure. They measured the hours you refused to poison your own tongue. They saw the grit behind your grace and the steel behind your smile. Michael whispered that trust is like a bridge built across a river that rises every spring. It must be checked and strengthened, not taken for granted. Each beam is a choice, and each rail is a habit. You gathered new boundaries the way a gardener gathers tools. Clear words replaced vague hopes. Consistent actions replaced fragile promises. You began to prize quiet rooms where people tell the truth slowly. You discovered that the strongest bonds grow in the shade of patience. You found pleasure in unremarkable days where integrity does ordinary work. The old wound still ached when the light hit it a certain way. You did not pretend it vanished just because healing had begun. You honored the ache without feeding it. There were moments when anger woke like thunder, and you let it pass without throwing lightning. There were moments when grief knocked, and you let it sit with you until it finished speaking. There were moments when relief arrived so gently you almost missed it. The friend asked to make it right beyond words. They offered time and effort, not slogans. They understood that amends live in calendars and commitments. You accepted what was wise and declined what would only reopen the cut. Your yes became cleaner because your no became stronger. You designed a future where the door is open, but the hinges are guarded. Michael took the rumor by the throat and turned it into a lesson that serves you. He carved the date into your memory as the day you grew larger than humiliation. He invited your courage to become a daily habit rather than an emergency performance. You returned to your craft, your work, your calling. You returned with a steadiness that does not depend on the temperature of other people. You returned with an inner clock that keeps good time even when the town bells are ringing wrong. People began to notice a new quiet around you. It was not the silence of fear, but the quiet of someone who knows the terrain. It felt like a harbor that welcomes ships but does not depend on them. You started to celebrate small, honest wins that need no witnesses. You started to invest in friendships that are thicker than gossip and quicker than doubt. You started to see that integrity draws its own circle and writes its own invitations. The place where you once stood uncertain became the place where others leaned when their storms rose. They came to you for perspective because perspective had been carved into your bones. They came to you for calm because calm had been written into your breath. You walked past the room where your name had once been judged. The light through the windows looked ordinary again, which made it holy in a quiet way. Ordinary light heals the fastest because it returns every day. Your story stepped out of the shadow and went back to work. It did not need a spotlight to feel real. It only needed your daily agreement to live by what you say you believe. Michael set a blessing on your shoulder that cannot be stolen. He placed a seal on your words that keeps them honest and warm. He tuned your heart to the frequency of truth that does not shout. In time, you thanked the lesson, not because it was kind, but because you were. You honored the way you learned to stand without spectacle. You honored the way your name found its way home. The friend carries their own lesson now, and it walks with them every day. The lesson reminds them that stories are tools that can build or break. They learn to check the weight of a story before placing it on the table. Your boundaries became landmarks other people can see from far away. They are not walls that trap you, they are fences that keep the garden safe. Gates open for love, and gates close for harm. The circle finally understood that erosion stops when rock is revealed. Your life had always been stone beneath the soil. Time and pressure only cleared the surface and showed the lines. You stand today with a posture that does not waver when rumors try to fly. You stand with the kindness that still feeds your voice and your hands. You stand with the purpose that forgives history while protecting the future. Michael says you did not fall when they spoke, you rose. You did not splinter when they doubted, you fused. You did not lose your name, you learned how to sign it brighter. Life moves again, and your steps find rhythm in streets that once felt hostile. Your breath is deeper than before, and your vision is wider. Your peace is not fragile because it is anchored to truth rather than noise. You bless the room you enter, not with speeches, but with steadiness. You bless the day you wake into, not with declarations, but with honest work. You bless your own reflection, not with flattery, but with respect. The rumor grows smaller in the rear view of your journey. The lessons grow larger in the mirror of your spirit. The road ahead glows with the kind of light that does not blind. A fresh chapter begins where character speaks before you arrive. It opens doors that closed out of fear and invites new doors that were waiting for courage. It let the right people hear the quiet truth that always lived inside your actions. The old circle adjusts itself, and the new circle grows by design. You curate your company the way a master gardener curates sunlight and water. You build a rhythm that keeps your heart faithful to itself. Everything that tried to collapse you instead revealed your architecture. Everything that tried to swallow you instead taught you how to breathe underwater. Everything that tried to define you instead introduced you to the voice that never wavers. You continue forward with a map drawn by patience and a compass forged by integrity. You move with gratitude for each hour that stayed true when eyes turned away. You hold the gate of your future with hands that will not drop it. In the evenings, when the sky fades to warmer blues, you feel the presence of your guardian again. He says your name like a promise already kept. He says the story will remain steady as long as you remain honest. The night is gentle, and your windows are open to honest air. The house of your life is quiet, not because it is empty, but because it is aligned. The foundation does not creak because the beams are placed in truth. Your bed welcomes you, and the day rests its head on your shoulder. You let go of the last thread of anger and keep the strong thread of wisdom. You drift toward sleep with the knowledge that the center held. Tomorrow waits with clean pages and unhurried ink. Your character will sign them in an even hand. Your courage will dry the pages in sunlight that never needs an audience. You know who you are, and that knowledge is a gift no rumor can buy. You know where you are going, and that direction is a gift no crowd can steal. You know how to walk, and that rhythm is a gift you will give to others. Michael's final word tonight is quiet and complete. He leaves you with peace that moves like water around stone and returns stronger. He leaves you with a future that recognizes you on sight. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. Archangel Michael says your name belongs to the light that raised it, and no shadow will own it. He stands at your door at first light, patient and unwavering. He tells you to come outside because the next chapter prefers open air and steady feet. You step into the morning where dew holds the grass together like 1,000 small hands. The wind carries a quiet promise that truth loves repetition more than rumor loves spectacle. Your breath matches the pace of the day, calm and deliberate. A message arrives from someone who believed the false version and now wishes to understand. They do not demand theater or apology, only a window they can open. You give them the summary without anger and the timeline without heat. Clarity begins to move through the street like a procession that refuses to hurry. One person corrects another, and the corrections grow roots. The story starts to heal in the same places where it once bled. You return to your tasks with the steadiness of a craftsman who loves precision. Every gesture is measured, every word is clean. You let consistent days do what speeches cannot. The friend who spoke out of turn sends a long note that carries the weight of sleepless nights. They describe the fog that swallowed judgment and the pride that tried to act like certainty. They do not excuse themselves, and that absence feels like sunlight after rain. Michael reminds you that your heart is not a courtroom even when it holds evidence. Your heart is a house with rooms for repair, rooms for boundaries, and rooms for gentle quiet. You decide that repair can visit but cannot redecorate without permission. You set conditions that are simple and strong. The first condition asks for public truth where public harm wandered. The second condition asks for time served in the currency of changed habits. The friend accepts without bargaining, because bargaining would only rewrap the wound. They meet people where the rumor traveled and speak the new sentence with full breath. They learn that repair requires legs, not just lips. You walk through the week like a river choosing the clearest channel. The current is not loud, but it is relentless. Your name begins to feel like itself again in your own mouth. In the quiet, you remember a promise you made to yourself before the storm. You promised to remain a builder in a world that sometimes loves demolition. You promised to choose structure over spectacle even when spectacle offers applause. You visit the spaces that always knew your character, and those spaces greet you kindly. A mentor nods without ceremony, because real recognition rarely needs fireworks. A neighbor smiles with the kind of warmth that cannot be faked. Michael places a hand near your shoulder and turns your attention toward purpose. Purpose does not vanish when gossip appears, it simply waits beside the road. It holds your tools until your hands are ready again. You gather your projects as if gathering scattered birds back to one branch. The work receives you without judgment because work measures truth differently. Hours become threads that weave peace back into your days. New people approach with an openness that does not carry the old dust. They offer collaboration that is balanced rather than thirsty. They speak to your skill and to your steadiness, and that combination feels right. The friend continues their repair with humility that does not ask for praise. They show up early and speak plainly and listen fully. They learn the discipline of being reliable where they were once reckless. You notice that forgiveness and trust are not twins, and each walks at its own pace. Forgiveness walks with a cane made of compassion, steady and gentle. Trust walks with a ruler made of proof, exact and patient. On a soft afternoon, a small gathering forms where the rumor first found its echo. The circle listens as facts take their seats and opinions remain standing. The truth speaks in simple sentences and keeps its voice level. A few people look down as the weight of what they repeated presses on their shoes. Their silence is not defensive, it is reflective. They feel the cost of careless certainty, and that feeling begins a better future. Michael tilts your chin toward tomorrow and invites you to breathe deeper. He does not erase the past, he reframes it into strength. He says your name with the cadence of a promise you can keep. You choose rituals that make the new steadiness practical. You keep a log of completed commitments because completed commitments build trust. You keep your boundaries in writing because writing helps memory stay honest. You practice 3 small disciplines that change the temperature of your life. You respond slowly when heat rises because slowness cools the pan. You confirm facts before conclusions because confirmation respects reality. You surround yourself with people who prize accuracy more than drama. Their presence reduces noise like curtains reduce glare. Their habits make your own habits stronger without shouting about strength. The friend asks if they may serve beside you in work that benefits others. You agree where wisdom agrees and decline where proximity would cause confusion. Collaboration becomes selective rather than sentimental. You create a plan that lives on paper and in calendars. The plan includes the hours you protect for rest and for nourishment. The plan includes the projects that stretch you without tearing you. Michael leads you to the mirror that does not distort. The reflection does not carry the rumor, it carries the resilience that outlasted it. You greet yourself with respect because respect is the quiet fuel of longevity. A new opportunity arrives dressed like ordinary responsibility. It asks you to steward a small team through a complicated season. You accept because acceptance aligns with strength rather than fear. You bring to the team the lessons your trial carved into your bones. You bring calm that does not depend on flattery. You bring a method that favors clarity over charisma. The project begins to flourish under rhythms that keep promises visible. Milestones appear like evenly spaced stones across a stream. People cross with confidence because the stones do not wobble. Your reputation shifts from defended to demonstrated. Demonstration carries a gravity that gossip cannot lift. The community learns to measure by pattern rather than by noise. The friend, now a student of repair, mentors someone else who strayed near the same cliff. They speak with authenticity that textbooks cannot teach. Their cautionary story becomes medicine rather than theater. You keep cultivating friendships that breathe rather than suffocate. These friendships handle truth like a precious tool, never like a weapon. They hold your name carefully and expect you to hold theirs the same way. Michael points to the horizon where a larger assignment gathers. He says the trial did not disqualify you, it trained you. He says the future wants your integrity more than your applause. A letter arrives from a person you helped privately years ago. They describe how your quiet generosity changed the angle of their life. The letter feels like rain on a field that has waited patiently. You place the letter in a drawer where you keep evidence of goodness. The drawer is not for vanity, it is for memory during hard weather. Memory helps courage remember its home. The street that once felt heavy now feels workable. You move through it with light in your chest and weight in your steps. You carry the balance that strong people carry when they know who they are. A celebration is planned without spectacle, just people who stood steady. They share food and simple stories and gentle laughter. The evening closes without speeches, only gratitude. You craft a statement that will live on your wall where you can see it daily. The statement says you will anchor to truth and act with clarity. The statement says you will never trade dignity for speed. Michael walks with you past the place where the rumor first grew teeth. The building looks ordinary now, which makes it safe. Ordinary is the friend of recovery when recovery learns to breathe without drama. You invest in learning that refines your gifts like fire refines metal. You study, you practice, you review. Excellence becomes a habit rather than a hope. People seek your counsel because you do not panic when storms speak loudly. You offer frameworks instead of gossip and timelines instead of tantrums. You show them how to separate heat from light in the same conversation. The friend completes their amends with a final act that closes the loop. They stand in the same public square and name what was wrong and what is now right. They do not rush the moment because maturity hates shortcuts. You feel a release move through the crowd like a door opening to clean air. The community exhales a truth it had been learning slowly. Relief wraps itself around dignity and both remain standing. Michael places his blessing on your daily schedule rather than just your milestones. He favors your mornings and steadies your afternoons. He grants you sleep that repairs instead of sleep that hides. You plant new seeds where erosion once tried to rule. Those seeds include practices that protect your name without performing. They include commitments that build your future without wounding anyone else. The people who matter most no longer look at you through the fog of rumor. They look at you through the clarity of shared work and repeated grace. They know your patterns well enough to trust them. You replace defensiveness with discernment that moves quietly and accurately. You replace reactivity with response that chooses timing as carefully as words. You replace fragile pride with solid humility that does not need an audience. A season passes, and your life gathers the proof that time loves to keep. The proof is found in projects finished with excellence. The proof is found in relationships shaped by reliability. Michael nods at the ledger that only you and truth can read. The credits and debits finally balance with wisdom in the margins. The total writes itself in peace. You realize that the trial was less about their mouths and more about your backbone. Your backbone learned to carry more without bending toward bitterness. Your backbone learned to say yes and no with the same honesty. The friend becomes something new in your story, neither villain nor hero. They become a witness to the cost of carelessness and the power of repair. Their presence in your memory brings caution and compassion in equal measure. You keep walking with a cadence that others begin to borrow. Your example lends rhythm to those who once stumbled. Stability travels farther than excitement because stability keeps showing up. The final correction drifts through the last corner that still held the wrong version. It lands, it rests, it remains. There is nothing left to chase, only life to live. Michael sets his sword in the ground like a boundary that refuses confusion. The blade is not for harm, it is for clarity. Clarity keeps the door open for love and closed for chaos. You write a simple line in your journal that feels like a vow. It says you will never outsource your identity to rooms that do not know you. It says your proof will be your pattern. The night comes soft again and you walk your home with unhurried steps. You touch the doorframes as if blessing the thresholds with steadiness. You end the day the way you started it, honest and whole. Your name belongs to the work you were made to do and the way you were made to love. Your steps belong to the road that answers truth with more truth. Your peace belongs to you, and you keep it. Michael closes the day with a promise that does not depend on weather. He says your life will remain anchored where rumor cannot swim. He says the light you carry will not shout, it will endure. You set your tools in their places and your plans in their drawers. You let tomorrow arrive without fear because tomorrow respects patterns. You rest inside the house you built from integrity and time. The horizon waits with assignments shaped like ordinary greatness. You will meet them with clean hands and a steady voice. You will meet them with a heart that remembers and a mind that measures. The past no longer dictates the pace of your breath. The present no longer borrows its temperature from chatter. The future no longer feels like a debate, it feels like a decision already made. You honor the lessons by living them rather than quoting them. You honor yourself by being the same person in every room. You honor the community by choosing accuracy over appetite. Michael says this chapter is closed with dignity and opens with craft. He says your character is not a monument, it is a movement. He says that movement will keep building as long as you keep choosing truth. You turn out the last light and the house hums like a well-tuned heart. You sleep where peace can find you without searching. You belong to the morning you will greet. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20.